We protect our own. That line hung in the air, heavy as the sound of 200 motorcycles idling outside Parker's diner. If you'd told Lisa Parker that this morning would end with her little restaurant packed wall to wall with leather jackets and patch-covered vests, she'd have called you crazy. But here we are. Just 24 hours ago, Lisa had made a choice, a simple, quiet stand that would ripple out further than she could ever imagine. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Hey everyone, welcome to Tales Unveiled. Today's story takes us to Millfield, a place where news travels faster than the speed of gossip and loyalty means everything. Let's dive in. Lisa's hands were raw and red, scrubbing down the sticky counter for what felt like the 100th time that day. Lunch rush. If you could call 8 customers a rush, was over, and she mentally tallied the slim stack of bills in the cash drawer, wondering if it'd be enough to keep the lights on. The electric bill was burning a hole in her purse. Final notice stamped in angry red, letters right on the front. Just a few more months, she whispered, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. It was a lie she'd been repeating for a year and a half. Ever since her dad's stroke put her in a care home and left her running the family diner. Her nursing career, city life, and everything she knew had all been traded for this greasy spoon that felt like it was bleeding out faster than she could patch it up. Above her, the old ceiling fan spun, more for show than any actual breeze. Millfield's main street outside looked just as tired. It had been a rough couple years for this town. Ever since the factory laid off the night shift, more shops had closed and opened, and rumors of who would be next were always circulating. The door's little bell jingled, a bright, cheerful sound her dad had always loved. Lisa looked up, and her heart nearly stopped. The man who stepped in looked like he'd walked straight out of a biker movie. Tall, broad, every inch of him worn leather and faded tattoos, with a beard wild enough to have its own life story. But what made everyone freeze wasn't his size or his beard. It was a patch on his vest, a white skull grinning against a black background. Hell's Angels. In Millfield, you didn't see that often. Or ever. All conversation died. Mrs. Patterson, the oldest regular, clutched her pearls like she expected a bar fight any second. The Simmons brothers stopped chewing mid-bite. Even the radio seemed to stutter. The biker seemed to sense it too, his shoulders hunching as he took the farthest stool from everyone else. A man used to being unwelcome. Lisa heard her dad's old voice in her head. Everyone's money spends the same at Parker's. He'd never had to serve a Hell's Angel, though. Not in this town, where gossip moved faster than a local paper, and all bikers were guilty by association. Still, Lisa steadied her hands, grabbed a menu and a glass of ice, and walked over. The other waitress, Jenny, had suddenly decided the ketchup bottles needed urgent attention at the opposite end of the diner. "Thanks for coming into Parker's," Lisa said, putting on her customer service smile. "Today's special is meatloaf with mashed potatoes. Made it fresh this morning." He looked up, and Lisa was caught off guard by his eyes, pale blue, rimmed red, the kind of eyes that had seen too many miles and too many bad nights. They didn't fit the tough guy look. Not at all. "Coffee," he said. His voice was low, soft, black as you could make it, and whatever's fastest. Been on the road since before dawn. Lisa poured coffee from the ancient pot, watching his hands. They were huge, rough, and scraped raw at the knuckles. A hospital bracelet peeked out from under his sleeve. Even exhausted, he handled the mug like something precious. "Long ride ahead of you?" Lisa asked, keeping her tone light, just like her dad used to do. He wrapped both hands around the mug, soaking up the warmth. Heading back to Riverside Hospital, he finally said, voice thick, "My daughter." He stared into the cup, unable to finish. Lisa felt something twist inside her. Not pity. She doubted this man would want pity. But she recognized that look. She'd seen it too many times work in the oncology ward. Someone keeping vigil. "I'll get your order in right away," Lisa said, her voice gentle. "Toast and eggs. Fastest thing on the menu." He nodded, shoulders slumping in relief. Maybe it was the food. Maybe it was just that she hadn't asked him to explain. Lisa put in the order and felt the stares. Mrs. Patterson whispered urgently with Mrs. Henderson. The Simmons brothers glared. Jenny kept busy with those ketchup bottles. In Millfield, The past stuck around, and a Hell's Angel patch meant trouble, no matter what the truth was. The bell jingled again. Two local cops, Officer Brennan and Officer Taylor, walked in. They came here a lot, usually friendly, but Lisa had always found Brennan's attitude a bit much. He clocked the biker instantly, nudged Taylor, and made a beeline for counter. Well, Brennan said, making no effort to lower his voice. Don't often see your kind in Millfield. Just passing through, I hope. The biker kept his eyes down. Just getting some food, officer. Lisa set a plate of eggs and toast in front of him. Anything else? Before the biker could answer, Brennan cut in. How about you check his ID, Lisa? Make sure he's not one of the angels we've been warned about. The biker moved for his wallet, slow and steady, but Brennan's hand hovered near his holster. Lisa's patience snapped. He's a paying customer, Brennan. Just like you. Not just like me, Brennan smirked. His kind brings trouble. Drugs. Violence. My kind. The biker's voice was quiet, but hard. You don't know anything about me, officer. Brennan leaned closer, lips curled. I know that patch. I know what it means. The biker started to reply, but Taylor jumped in. Maybe we should run your plates. See what comes up. A hush fell over the room. The biker set down his fork. I'm just trying to eat before I see my daughter at Riverside. He trailed off. Oh, I'm sure, Brennan sneered. Sick family, that's a new one. Classic excuse. Something inside Lisa broke. Maybe it was a memory of her own father in a hospital bed, or just a sense of basic decency. Either way, she'd had enough. That's enough, she said, voice sharp as a knife. You're done harassing my customers, Brennan. The whole diner froze. Nobody talked to Brennan like that, especially not about how he handled troublemakers. Excuse me? Brennan glared. You heard me. He's done nothing wrong, and you're treating him like a criminal. Unless you got a real reason, I'd appreciate it if you let him eat in peace. Brennan stood, looming over her. Your dad would be real disappointed. Lisa, taking sides against the law. Lisa's voice didn't shake. My dad taught me to judge people by how they act, not what they wear. Right now, you're the one acting out in my diner. The silence was suffocating. A few regulars looked away. Mrs. Henderson buried herself in her pie. I'll take my food to go, the biker said quietly, reaching for his wallet. No, Lisa replied, firm. Your money's no good today. This one's on me. The biker looked at her, surprised, grateful. Brennan's face turned red. You're making a mistake, Lisa. This town remembers who its friends are. She stood tall, even as her hand shook. You ordering, or just here to intimidate my customers? For a split second, Lisa wondered if Brennan might actually lose it. Instead, he slapped a couple bills on the counter and stormed out, Taylor close behind. The bell clanged as the door slammed. Conversation crept back in. Lisa turned to the biker, who was watching her with a new respect. I'm sorry about that, she said. He shook his head. Don't be. Not many people would have done what you just did. He paused. Name's Ray Mercer. Lisa Parker. He finished his meal quickly, left a 20 on the counter despite her protests. For your dad, he said, then left. Lisa tried to shake it off, but the looks from other customers told her it wouldn't be that easy. As she closed up that night, the whispers had already started, her story moving through town faster than she could keep up. That night, Lisa sat by her father's bed at the Millfield Care Center, letting the events of the day tumble out in a low voice. The room was quiet except for the hum of the machines and the slow, steady rise and fall of her father's chest. She told him about the biker, the police, how she'd stood up for someone who needed it. I don't know if I did the right thing, Dad, she whispered, though his stroke left him unable to answer. Still, she hoped, just maybe he understood. His eyes met hers, and for a moment, she thought she saw approval in his gaze. Or maybe that was just what she needed to see. The next morning, Lisa got to the diner early, as always. But today something was different. A paper sign, hastily taped to the front window, greeted her. Close until further notice. Underneath, in thick red marker, Some had scrawled, "N.O. Biker Lovers in Millfield." Lisa's hand shook as she tore it down, anger and disbelief mixing in her chest. Inside, nothing looked touched, but the message was clear. Someone wanted her to feel unwelcome, to feel afraid. The day dragged on. The breakfast crowd was light. The regulars who did come and glance around nervously, like they might catch trouble just by sitting there. By lunch, it was clear Parker's diner was being boycotted. The usual clatter of silverware and hum of conversation had vanished, leaving behind the clinking of ice in glasses and the occasional cough. Old Mrs. Henderson made a point to stop by, sitting at her usual booth with her tuna sandwich. She patted Lisa's hand, giving her a sad smile. "This will blow over, dear. Small towns have short memories, at least when they want to." A couple others, like Dave Wilson and his wife, came in too. They made a show of sitting by the front window, their message clear to anyone walking by. They weren't afraid of rumors. "Hell with them," Dave said, raising his coffee a little too loudly. Best coffee in town is still the best coffee in town. But these small acts of defiance weren't enough to turn the tide. Lisa did the math in her head as she refilled coffee mugs and wiped down empty tables. If things stayed like this for another week, she wouldn't make rent. The diner had always been her father's legacy, a place where she learned to count change, swap stories, and see everyone who walked in as a neighbor. Now it all felt fragile, at risk of disappearing, because she'd chosen to stand up for a stranger. Around 2 o'clock, the diner was empty except for the sound of the fan ticking above her. Lisa let herself sag against the counter, her shoulders heavy with defeat. She was fighting back tears when the bell jingled. Instantly, she straightened, wiping her eyes and forcing a smile. A man stepped in, maybe in his 50s, with jeans and a plain blue tee. The only hint of biker life was a small Hell's Angels pin on his jacket. Behind him was a woman with neat gray braids. "Lisa Parker?" the man asked, offering his hand. "I'm Thomas Mercer. This is my wife, Sarah. Ree's my brother." Lisa shook their hands, nerves fluttering in her stomach. "Is everything okay? How's his daughter?" Sarah answered gently. He wanted to be here himself, but he's still at the hospital with Jessie. It's touch and go. She's in the middle of a new treatment. Last chance kind of thing. Lisa's heart squeezed tight. "I'm so sorry," she said, her voice soft. "Ree said you were kind to him yesterday," Sarah continued. "You stood up for him, for what's right. That matters, especially in a place like this." Lisa shrugged, feeling awkward. "I just did what anyone would do." Thomas shook his head. "No, you didn't. Most folks would have looked the other way. And it looks like you're paying for it now." He glanced at the empty booths. Lisa couldn't deny it. She didn't want pity, but she couldn't hide from the truth, either. "We want to say thank you," Sarah said, pulling something from her purse. Lisa bristled, worried they'd offer her money, but Thomas raised his hands, as if reading her mind. "Not money, but maybe we can send some business your way." Before Lisa could ask what he meant, the deep rumble of engines rolled down the street. At first one, then a dozen, then more. She peered out the window, her jaw dropping as motorcycle after motorcycle pulled up, filling the street, the parking lot, even the curb. It didn't stop at a handful. There must have been hundreds. "What's happening?" Lisa whispered. Thomas smiled, pride in his eyes. "Ree reached out to some friends last night, local chapters, people who look out for each other. Word travels fast in our community." Sarah added, 217 by my last count, and they've all been riding since dawn. I hope you're ready. The bell chimed again, and the first wave of bikers entered, men and women of all ages, patches and vests and tattoos, but all carrying themselves with quiet respect. Lisa barely had time to process as they filled every booth, every stool, every open spot in the place. A big man with a beard that would make Santa jealous came to the counter, his handshake firm but kind. "You must be Lisa. I'm Marcus, president of the Riverside chapter. Ree's one of ours. Hope you don't mind us dropping by." Lisa just shook her head in awe. I don't have enough food. There's no way I can serve all of you." Marcus laughed, his voice booming. "Already handled. Sarah called your suppliers. There's a big delivery coming in 20 minutes. Everything's covered. Lisa looked around, dazed, as her diner transformed from a ghost town to the busiest place in Millfield. The bikers ordered coffee, water, anything she could make fast. They paid in cash, left tips bigger than most people's meals. "Why?" she asked Marcus, still in shock. "Why all this for me?" He looked at her, serious now. "People see our patches, and they think they know who we are. But you saw a person, not a stereotype. Ree was just a dad, trying to visit his sick daughter. You stood up for him. That means something to us." Outside, the motorcycles kept rolling in. Across the street, townsfolk gathered, watching the spectacle. Even Officer Taylor stood on the sidewalk, looking baffled, radio in hand. Lisa spotted him and almost laughed. He'd never seen anything like this. The bell rang again, and this time Lisa recognized a man in the doorway. Ray Mercer. He looked tired but lighter, hope flickering in his eyes. "Hope you don't mind," he said, "but I brought a few friends." Lisa grinned, the weight in her chest lifting. "I think I can squeeze them in." For the rest of the afternoon, Lisa, Jenny, and a pair of teenage helpers ran ragged, serving plate after plate as the delivery trucks arrived just in time. Every table was full. Customers rotated out so new arrivals could eat. The register overflowed. Lisa had to empty it twice, and still the tips kept coming. Word spread through town faster than wildfire. At first, people peered into the windows, uncertain, whispering about the wall of motorcycles outside Parker's diner. But slowly, curiosity overcame caution. Some regulars, who'd hesitated all morning, finally walked through the door. At first, they hovered awkwardly near the entrance, but the bikers greeted them with nods and easy smiles. A few regulars even found themselves invited to share tables when there weren't enough seats. It was a kind of scene no one would have believed if they hadn't seen it. Old Mrs. Henderson deep in conversation with a biker grandmother about different quilting patterns, while the Simmons brothers, who'd glared the previous day, ended up sharing a booth with a pair of riders swapping road trip stories. Dave Wilson, always quick to speak his mind, discovered the guy next to him was also a Vietnam vet. A high school principal sipped coffee with Ryder, who, it turned out, taught English at a community college on weekends. With every passing hour, the tension inside the diner seemed to melt away. Music spilled in from portable speakers out by the bikes, and the steady rumble of engines turned into the cheerful buzz of a block party. Someone fired up a grill in the parking lot, helping with the overflow cooking. Neighborhood kids gathered on the sidewalk, eyes wide at the shining chrome and custom paint jobs, grinning when some of the bikers let them sit on the bikes for pictures. Through it all, Lisa was everywhere at once, refilling mugs, carrying plates, swapping out empty pie dishes. For the first time in months, she felt like her diner was alive again, not just surviving, but thriving. As the sun started to dip, Lisa finally caught a quiet moment. She pulled Ray Mercer aside near the kitchen door, wanting to ask a question she'd been holding on to all day. "How's your daughter?" "Jessie, right?" she asked gently. Ray's whole face changed, hope and relief mingling in his tired eyes. "Yeah, Jessie. That's actually why I could make it today." He hesitated, and then, unable to hold back a smile, said, "We got some good news this morning. Doctor called early. Her treatment's working. It's still early, but her numbers are looking up." His voice caught, the emotion raw. First good news we've had in months. Before she knew it, Lisa had wrapped her arms around him in a quick, fierce hug. Ray stiffened for a moment, then relaxed, returning the embrace. "She wants to meet you," he said when they pulled apart. "I told her about what you did for me, standing up for an old guy in a leather vest. She said you reminded her of herself. Tough as nails, no nonsense." "I like that," Lisa replied, feeling a surge of pride. As the light faded, Marcus, the chapter president, climbed up onto a chair and called for attention. The laughter and chatter died down, everyone turning to face him. "I want to thank Lisa Parker for her hospitality today," he said, his deep voice echoing through the diner. "And I want to make sure everyone in Millfield hears this. Parker's Diner is under protection of the Hells Angels from this day forward." A roar of approval filled the room. Marcus grinned, his tough features softening for a moment. "We'll be making this a regular stop on our rides. And if anyone in this town ever gives Lisa trouble about who she chooses to serve, they'll be answering to us." He fixed his gaze on Officer Taylor, who had finally worked up the nerve to come inside and now looked like he was wishing for invisibility in the corner booth. "Are we clear?" Marcus asked. Taylor nodded quickly, his cheeks red. "Good," Marcus said, his voice lighter now. "Now, who's ready for some pie? I hear Lisa's apple pie is the best in 3 counties. The tension that had once suffocated the room was gone. Another round of laughter erupted, and soon the only thing anyone was worried about was making sure they got a slice before it was gone. Later that night, long after the last biker had said their goodbyes and promised a return, Lisa locked up the diner and counted the day's receipts. It was more than she'd made in 2 weeks. More importantly, it was enough to cover the electric bill, next month's rent, and a little extra to stash away for emergencies. But it wasn't just about the money. Something else had changed in Millfield. As Lisa left to visit her father at the care center, she felt it, a shift, a lightness in the air that hadn't been there before. She knew, deep down, that the town had seen something they'd never forget. Maybe, just maybe, she thought, they'd begun to understand what it truly meant to judge people by their actions instead of their appearances. The following morning, Lisa arrived at the diner before sunrise, expecting nothing more than the usual quiet. But leaning against the door was a package wrapped in brown paper. She picked it up confused and carried it inside. When she opened it, her breath caught. Inside was a leather vest custom-made, with Parker's Diner emblazoned in bright thread across the back, surrounded by the words "Friends of the Angels." Pinned to the front was a handwritten note, the letters rough but clear. "For the bravest diner owner we know, Jessie's doing better. She still wants to meet you. Ray." Lisa stood for a long moment, running her fingers over the stitching. Finally, she hung the vest behind the counter, right next to her father's old apron. The two side by side, symbols of the family she was born into and the new one she'd found. A little later, Officer Brennan walked in for coffee. For the first time since Lisa could remember, he was quiet, almost sheepish. He ordered as usual and paid in cash, avoiding her eyes. Lisa served him with the same smile she'd given every customer, her dad's words echoing in her mind. Judge people by how they act, not what they wear. Sometimes, it took a diner full of bikers to remind a whole town what that really meant. It's strange, the way a single moment can change the trajectory of so many lives. For Lisa Parker, that day at the diner started like any other, worrying about bills, wiping counters, dreaming of something better, but trying to make do with what she had. She never set out to make a statement or to stand up to the whole town. But sometimes, life hands you a choice and you either step up or you turn away. Word about what happened at Parker's Diner didn't just spread through Millfield. It became the talk of every barbershop, beauty salon, and church group in 3 counties. Some people were scandalized, muttering about troublemakers, and warning that Lisa was bringing shame to her father's good name. Others quietly admitted they admired her guts. But most folks were simply curious. Curious enough to sneak glances at the diner or ask around for the real story. And as days passed, something amazing started to happen. The bikers kept their promise. Every weekend, the street outside Parker's Diner would fill up with motorcycles, sometimes 20, sometimes 50, sometimes 100 or more. They didn't just come to eat. They brought their families, spent money at the gas station, bought groceries down the street, and left big tips everywhere they went. Other small businesses that had shunned Lisa at first now scrambled to put up "Welcome Bikers" signs in their windows. Millfield, it turned out, liked the business after all. Inside the diner, the atmosphere transformed. People who'd once glared at outsiders found themselves sharing tables with them. Mrs. Henderson and her biker quilting buddies started a monthly sewing circle, which soon grew so large they had to move it to the town hall. The Simmons brothers, still suspicious, ended up helping a couple from the motorcycle club fix a flat tire and came away with new fishing buddies. Even the cops, at least the reasonable ones, stopped by for pie and coffee and kept their attitudes in check. But it wasn't just about the business or even the new friendships. Something deeper had changed in Millfield. The town that had always prided itself on tradition and knowing everyone's business discovered a new kind of pride, one built on openness, respect, and a willingness to see past old stereotypes. For Lisa, life didn't magically get easy. There were still long nights, slow days, and moments of doubt. There were still a few folks who crossed the street rather than come into her diner. But she held her head higher now, a little stronger for having faced down the worst and come out the other side. Some nights, she'd close up after the dinner rush, stand alone in the empty diner, and run her hand over the vest hanging behind the counter. She'd think about her father, about all he'd built, and the new family she'd found in the most unlikely place. Sometimes she'd laugh at how worried she used to be about fitting in, about what people thought. Now she knew, if you did the right thing, the people who mattered would see it and the rest didn't matter at all. Ray Mercer and his family became regulars. Jessie, his daughter, came to visit as soon as she was well enough. The first time she stepped through the door, the whole diner went silent for a second, then erupted in applause. Jessie hugged Lisa tight, her eyes shining with gratitude and relief. "You saved my dad," Jessie whispered, voice trembling. "I don't think he would have made it through those last weeks without what you did." Lisa shook her head. "He's the brave one. I just did what my father would have wanted." From that day, Jessie and Lisa's friendship grew, built on tough times and shared strength. When Jessie was well enough, she joined her dad on rides and even worked part-time at the diner, swapping stories and smiles with anyone who'd listen. The little acts of kindness rippled outward. The bikers organized charity rides to help cover hospital bills for families in need. Local kids learned how to polish chrome and change oil. The diner became the unofficial community center, where everyone, from preachers to punks, could find a seat, a hot meal, and someone willing to listen. Lisa's dad never fully recovered from his stroke, but on his good days, Lisa brought him to the diner in his wheelchair. He'd sit near the window, nodding at old friends and new faces alike. The sight of his old apron and Lisa's new vest side by side always brought a smile to his face. Sometimes, Lisa swore she could see him relax a little, knowing the place he loved was in good hands. Millfield was still Millfield. Old habits died hard, and sometimes a new rumor would pop up about those bikers or that girl who took their side. But now, whenever that happened, someone else would speak up, someone who'd seen the truth for themselves. Sometimes it was Dave Wilson, best coffee in 3 counties, and the bravest heart behind the counter. If you don't like it, go somewhere else. Other times it was Mrs. Henderson. You can tell a lot about a person by the company they keep, and I'll keep company with Lisa any day. And sometimes it was one of the bikers, loud and proud. Parker's Diner is family. You mess with Lisa, you mess with all of us. By the time the first snows fell that year, the diner had become more than a business, more than a legacy. It was a symbol of what could happen when one person refused to back down, when a community opened its doors, and when courage outshone prejudice. Over the next few months, Parker's Diner settled into its new identity, not just as a place to eat, but as the beating heart of a changing town. Lisa worked harder than ever, but for the first time in a long time, it didn't feel lonely. Each day brought someone new, travelers drawn by the whispers of what happened there, old friends returned with apologies, and the regulars who never left her side. The diner walls, once cluttered with fading pictures and old memorabilia, started to fill with new memories. Polaroids of bikers grinning beside townsfolk. Kids with ice cream mustaches perched on sparkling choppers. A faded napkin pinned to the board behind the register, covered with thank you notes in all kinds of handwriting. And in the middle of it all hung that leather vest. Parker's Diner. Friends of the Angels. A silent promise that no one would stand alone here again. Lisa made a habit of greeting everyone the same way, no matter their jacket badge or background. Some came for the coffee and pie. Others came just to be seen, to know they belonged somewhere. The little things, the warm refill, the extra slice on the house, the way Lisa learned each regular's story, built something stronger than any single act of defiance ever could. Jessie visited often, sometimes with her father, sometimes with friends she'd made during her treatments. She'd always head straight for the counter, throwing her arms around Lisa before settling in. She brought hope with her, proof that even on the worst days, things would get better. The police, too, found themselves changed. Officer Brennan, once so quick to judge, became a quieter presence. He never apologized outright, but he came in for coffee most mornings, his tone polite, his gaze softer. Officer Taylor, now a regular himself, started waving at the bikers from his patrol car. At first, it was awkward. Eventually, it just became normal. Every now and then, someone new would come in with worry in their eyes, uncertain about the rumors they'd heard. Maybe they expected trouble. Maybe they were just hungry. Lisa would serve them the same way she served everyone else. And by the end of the meal, most realized they weren't outsiders anymore. The seasons changed, but the lesson stuck. Christmas brought more riders than ever, their bikes strung with colored lights, each one bringing gifts for local kids. The town's tree lighting that year happened right outside the diner, with Lisa asked to flip the switch. Spring saw charity rides and cookouts, pie-eating contests and school fundraisers. Parker's Diner became a landmark, a place where everyone's money truly did spend the same. Lisa's father, though still changed by a stroke, took quiet pride in the way the diner had grown. On good days, he'd smile at Lisa as she worked, sometimes giving her a thumbs up when he caught her eye. She hung on to those moments, carrying them through the tougher ones. And when Lisa sometimes wondered if she'd done the right thing, risking everything for one customer, she only had to look around. The laughter, the stories, the sight of strangers becoming friends, all reminded her that courage wasn't about grand gestures or easy victories. It was about showing up again and again with an open heart. One morning, as Lisa opened the diner and flipped on the neon sign, she found a new note tucked inside the mailbox. No name, just a few words scribbled on the back of a receipt. "You made us see differently. Thank you." Lisa smiled, tucking the note next to the vest behind the counter. It's funny, she thought, how the smallest acts, a cup of coffee, a stand taken in the face of injustice, could change so much. Parker's Diner wasn't just a place to eat anymore. It was a place that remembered the best in people and never forgot that everyone, no matter their story, deserved a seat at the table. So if you ever find yourself driving through Millfield, keep an eye out for the little diner with the leather vest on the wall and the parking lot full of bikes. Step inside. You'll find a story waiting for you, a community built on kindness, and maybe, if you're lucky, the best slice of apple pie you've ever tasted. Love the story? Tap that like button and subscribe to Tales Unveiled for more real-life stories that prove a little courage can go a long way. And if you haven't seen our last episode, check out the video right here on your screen. See you next time.